Well, as promised, Srinivasan Subramanian, Managing Director and Head of Institutional Equities at Axis Capital, joins us now on the show all the way from London. Thanks so much, sir, for joining us on the show. Well, first up, how are you reading the macro challenges? We have, crude prices that have spiked up. You have the rupee as well weakening. And do you think the market can regress further from here?
See, as far as we are concerned, I think that the earnings are coming through, but the macro, as you said, is a little bit of a concern, not in terms of the growth, but in terms of the CAD, and particularly in terms of the CAD because of what's happening to the currency. In the sense that the currency going to where it is not a surprise, in the sense that it should have happened at some point, because the rupee has been rather stable between 2013 and early part of 2017. So for 4 years when it is stable, at some point it should give way for the natural depreciation on the inflation differential. It just happened where it is. And also if you look at rupee also, quite a lot of the movement of the rupee in 2018, whether it's strengthening or it's weakening, were to do with the US dollar. Rupee against other currencies were by and large stable. But I think that rupee finally is seeking a level. I only hope that it finds the level very soon, because one of the reasons why foreigners kept away from India was also that on the worry because of CAD, what's going to happen to the rupee. But now that the rupee is done whatever it has to do, I guess that people will start looking at India a little bit more closer.
Okay. Hi, afternoon. How are you looking at the pharmaceutical space now at this point of time?
I think the pharma space is not so much because of the US earnings. It's essentially because most of the US FDA related issues which has been happening over the last 2 to 3 years has been slowly being resolved by Indian companies to the satisfaction of the US FDA. And as that happens and the US FDA restrictions tend to come off, I think that their earnings will grow back. I think what we have seen early till about up to the middle of August was essentially that people, the markets have responded to companies responding positively to US FDA concerns, and the US FDA acknowledging those efforts by Indian companies and removing some of these restrictions. That's what went up, particularly if you'll take a look at Sun or something like that. But the rupee depreciation over the last 3 weeks has been an important element for the subsequent positive move in the pharma space. So that's where they are.
Well, sir, at this point of time, what's your call on consumer names? Still see some value in some of these stocks. So do you believe that valuations will be challenging for the likes of HUL, Britannia and the likes?
I think our call always has been on this sector that the valuations have been challenging for this. But having said that, the valuations have been challenging on the sector for the last couple of years. You've seen a bit of a correction. I think this correction has come off, but I don't see a long-term, I wouldn't put a sell on the sector as a whole. You have to look at individual stocks. My guess is that once the investors reprice IT and they reprice pharma and they reprice some of the other dollar-denominated stories, they're going to look at domestic stories. I think that the domestic capex is going to come through a bit. So you will see some interest for some time into what I call sector rotation, and therefore it's coming down. I don't see a 30–40% down in these sectors, even though that the valuations are rich and challenging. I see that after in another maybe a bit of a smaller correction, you would see much more of a sideways move rather than a significant drop off from here.
Okay. Your thoughts on the auto space. What do you think will do well? Will the two-wheelers continue to do well? Will the likes of Maruti in the passenger vehicle space, be attractive for you? And off late, at least going by the August sales number, CV makers performed exceedingly well across the board. Is that looking good to you?
I think the two-wheelers have to come to do well, because if the rural demand comes through, power in the rural sector comes through, rural will continue. I mean, the two-wheelers which have been laggards will have to do well. But having said that, what is the listed four-wheeler is essentially Maruti, right? And Maruti, the only issue about Maruti is that does it have the capacity to fill in its demand. I think the demand for Maruti continues to be very, very strong, and they have been able to manage their capacities to fill in the demand. So I don't see a major negative for Maruti. If at all anything, two-wheelers would do much better than Maruti, but Maruti should also do well. I don't see a downside in Maruti at all.